What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So I remember this film so vividly. I was about 11 years old, almost 12 years old. I was in the 6th grade and I skipped school that Friday so I can go the Thursday night preview, the midnight premiere, and similar to what I did with The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And this film just felt like an event. It felt like it was going to be the final Star Wars film, and for about 10 years it was. And I just remember feeling like this was a culmination of George Lucas's creation. There was a celebration element to this. Everybody that was there in line and that was in the theater with their lightsabers swinging them up in the air in the Jedi robes, doing the Wookiee roars. There was just so much excitement for this film. It's easily one of the most special and exciting memories of Star Wars that I have in my memory. And yeah, whenever I think back on this film, I can only really think back fondly thanks to this film and this time and the overall crowd reaction to everything that was going on. Now let's get into my thoughts on this film. What I'll go ahead and say right out of the gate is I love this film. Now I'm sure that is no surprise to anybody who's been watching this channel for a while, because you know that I love each and every Star Wars film for its various and different reasons. And for me, when I watched this film, this is easily my favorite of the prequel films, which I feel is kind of a universal thought when you really go back and think of these films. On top of the fact that you can really tell this is the film that George Lucas wanted to make the most when he started this franchise. This is the reason that the prequel series actually really exists, is to tell the story that plays out in this film. So what I can say about this film on an overall level is visually, I've always really enjoyed it. A lot of people dog on the prequels for their CGI or overuse of CGI, and honestly, I don't have problems with CGI. I think if it is blended in well with the world and the aesthetic feels cohesive, then I'm all about it. Whether it's cartoony, realistic, it doesn't matter. If it looks bad in something that maybe needs it to look more gritty, like if the film has more gritty effects and then the CG looks really bad, like if you had a movie like Solo, a Star Wars story, in some of those darker and grittier areas, and you had a character like Jar Jar that the CG doesn't really blend with that kind of darker, grittier tone, and it kind of has more of that Phantom Menace-esque look where it's very color poppy, then I don't think it's very consistent in this tone. Whereas I think the CG in the prequel films is very consistent with the look, tone, and feel of those prequel films. Now, I think that Revenge of the Sith easily has the best CG of the franchise, which makes sense. More time was able to go by. They were able to figure things out. And I feel like there is that blend of, more realistic looking CG as well as keeping to that consistent tone of a more, colorful, cartoony looking CG. Now, there are some things I think that don't look super cartoony, and I think, again, just fit the world. There's a cohesiveness to the CG, I think, in this film more than any of the other prequel films. But yeah, I really just enjoy the overall look, feel, and vibe of this film. I love the lightsaber action in this film. There's some of the best lightsaber work in this film. Specifically, a great fight at the end of the film called Duel of the Fates. And if you've seen this film, you know that lightsaber battle is just absolutely epic. And I think it's just going to depend on where you fall on it. Do you like really big, choreographed lightsaber action, or are you into the more slow, dialogue-heavy, maybe less lightsaber clashing, more emotion behind the story, which I think that there's, benefits to both. But I think that this one has that emotion behind it, as well as having this just big, epic, fast-paced lightsaber action, and I've always had a great time with it. That final action sequence of this film, there's 2 lightsaber battles that happen at the end of this film at the exact same time, and it's cutting between them, and I've just never been bored watching the last act of this film. I've never really been bored watching this film. This also has one of the best intros, I think, to Star Wars, after the crawl, of course. One of the best, just epic intros into this franchise. I really just enjoy the overall aesthetic, the action, the look, feel, vibe of this film. I never get tired of watching this film on an entertainment level. Outside of that, you have actors like Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Samuel L. Jackson, Frank Oz, and many others coming back to reprise their roles from the other films in the prequel series. And yeah, what I could say about them is they all come back and I feel really dive deeper into their roles. You can tell that they feel a lot more solidified in these characters after the last 2 installments, especially Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. I really enjoyed the vulnerability that he brings to the character, as well as this darkness, this emotion, this sadness. This is a character that is incredibly broken, and it almost puts up a front, and that's something I really enjoy about the character of Kylo Ren that we'll get into later on into this franchise. But yeah, I really enjoy the kind of character that he is. I think a lot of people had a vision of what they think Anakin Skywalker should have been, and what I love that George Lucas did, and that's expanded upon in Attack of the Clones, and especially in the Clone Wars that takes place in between Attack of the Clones and this film, you get to see these little moments with his character where he will use darkness at times to kind of get the benefit of the moment. He doesn't really see things the way that the Jedi see it. You know, he is a little bit selfish. He doesn't have the full Jedi mentality that you would expect from a Jedi, and I really enjoy his character. He questions things a lot. He does things on his own way. He's a lot more adventurous, and at the same time, again, he's almost putting up a front. There's a part of him that just wants to be able to do what he wants to do, and at the same time be able to do things that restrict him from doing those things that he wants to do. So I've just always really loved what Hayden Christensen brings to the role, and some people have their criticisms about that, say he's bland and that he doesn't bring any emotion, but I disagree. I think that he really does play a complex character, and I really do enjoy what George Lucas does with his character on an overall level. And I think it goes without saying, Ewan McGregor is easily one of the greatest things in these prequel films. I mean, we're getting a TV series solely about him because everybody really loved him in this role. He does an incredible job of playing a younger Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And yeah, I think this is just another great installment with him in it, if not some of the best. He has some of the best lines of dialogue and some of the most emotional scenes, specifically near the end of the film. And I think that Ewan McGregor just nails it. He's absolutely fantastic in this film. Natalie Portman does a really great job as Padme. There are some decisions in this film that I know I recently spoke with some people that are not going to make everybody happy when it comes to her character, specifically towards the end. And if you've seen this film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's either going to seem shoehorned in there for you, or you're going to understand what George Lucas was going for. And either way, I think it's okay if you're not necessarily happy with it, but I really do love her as a character. I think Natalie Portman brings a lot to the character. She brings a lot of weight and nuance to the character, and I really enjoy how she grew up with the character from The Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith. And I really enjoy her character on an overall level and the connection between her and Anakin. I just really enjoy the trio of her, Anakin, and Obi-Wan, and their interactions and how the story kind of plays around them. Now let's talk a little bit about the story, and I will not be getting into any spoilers again, as usual, for those of you who have never seen this film, but the general gist of this film, if you have no idea what it's about, is it's essentially the birth of Darth Vader, and I'll leave it right there. Overall, this is a film that I feel has a lot of darkness. There's a lot of darker themes in this film. There's some really great moments, some great action, like I mentioned, and as far as the story goes, I think there are a lot of really nuanced moments between characters. There's a lot of things that really give us those connective pieces between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. I love the last hour of this film and how they really give us those connective pieces that we were waiting to see from these films, and I really do enjoy the overall narrative of this film. However, I think I can objectively say that there's definitely a lot of elements in this story that are rushed, specifically around the character of Anakin Skywalker and his arc later on in the film. I think that there's definitely elements about his character where you can understand where he's coming from, you understand why he acts so rashly and why he does things on such a whim. However, I feel like they could have definitely, taken some time to kind of show us his progression into what he goes through in this film a little bit more, but on an overall level, it doesn't take me out of the film. It's not something that completely ruins it for me. I just think it's a little bit rushed, and there are some moments as far as storytelling that I feel a little bit shoehorned to kind of get out of the way so that it connects better with the original trilogy. Like I said, there's something that happens with Padme near the end of the film, and I think that you're either going to be about it or you're not going to be about it, but it makes sense because it has to in some way connect with the original trilogy and flow with that story. So you're either going to be about some things in this film or you're not going to be about some things in this film. But I think this is a film that most Star Wars fans can definitely enjoy, despite any flaws that you may find or things that you may not like in the story. I think on an overall level, this film definitely takes everything that the prequel trilogy had done so far, doubles down on it, gives us some really great action, some really great character moments, and on an overall level has some of the best music in this entire franchise. I've said it for the other two prequel films. John Williams just did such an amazing job. What he brought to the score for these films is absolutely phenomenal. I think that he took what he did with the original trilogy and doubled down on it with the prequel trilogy. There is some of the most intricate Star Wars music in these films, despite whether or not you like these films. So yeah, guys, that's going to be my review for Revenge of the Sith. I think this is a really dark and just fun Star Wars film with a lot of great action, some really cool visuals, some new characters that are introduced. There are some characters and some story beats that I feel could have been expanded upon a little bit more and that were kind of rushed, and some characters that are just kind of there to be there and would go on to be expanded upon a lot more in the Clone Wars, which is a series that takes place obviously between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, as well as other stories and books and comics. So, you can have your thoughts about that and how the film, in a lot of ways, some things don't stand on its own in the film, and that it really shouldn't be a case that you have that supplemental material that expands upon it. However, I feel like Star Wars has always been like that. There are a lot of elements in the films that have always been slightly vague and that will get expanded upon outside of the films. And for me, I guess I just become accustomed to it because that's just part of Star Wars, and I enjoy the ability to be like, hey, I like that character. He didn't play a big role in this film, but let me go and read this book, or let me go and watch this series, and I'll be able to learn more about this character. And that really excites me, but I don't think that's going to work for everybody, so it just really depends on your take on the film. But yeah, guys, leave your comments down below. Do you like this film? Do you not like like this film, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, whether or not you disagree with me. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.